Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Cynthia Sanborn. I am the Bloomberg Visiting Professor of Philanthropy at Harvard University and Director of our program on philanthropy, civil society, and social change in the Americas, which we call PASCA. This program is a joint effort of the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies and the Hauser Center for Nonprofit Organizations. On behalf of Harvard University, the Kennedy School of Government, the David Rockefeller and Hauser Centers, as well as the Women in Public Policy Program and the Harvard Brazilian Organization, it is my immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Ruth Cardoso, founder and president of Comunidade Solidaria and First Lady of Brazil. It is also my pleasure to thank each of the organizations mentioned for making Dr. Cardoso's visit possible, and in particular to thank Jennifer Bertner, the Brazil program coordinator of the David Rockefeller Center, and her team of volunteers for all of the work they put into this wonderful event. And I wish to thank every one of you for coming and sharing this lecture with us today. In the last 2 decades, Latin America has witnessed the emergence of increasingly active and diverse civil societies, from grassroots social movements, interest groups, and civic associations, to private and community foundations. Such organizations have become important means for encouraging citizen participation and empowerment, as well as better social policy in countries with very weak democratic institutions and profound social inequalities. No country better expresses this situation today than Brazil. As most of you know, and you'll hear more from Dr. Cardoso, Brazil is a nation with tremendous social problems. At the same time, Brazil has one of Latin America's most diverse and growing civil societies, powerful social movements of urban and rural poor, organizations of workers, students, women of all ages, diverse religious groups, and professional non-governmental organizations. Brazil also has business leaders who are internationally recognized for their efforts to promote more corporate social responsibility, both domestically and at a global level. And the Brazilian government has taken the lead in promoting alliances among these diverse actors in the effort to reduce poverty and social inequality. Our PASCA program aims to promote greater understanding of these phenomena. We also aim to tap the power, the convening ability, and resources of Harvard University to encourage stronger linkages among scholars and practitioners of philanthropy and of social change across the Americas. We do this through diverse means, including seminars and workshops, collaborative research efforts, and an active visiting scholar and fellows program. Dr. Cardoso's presentation today is the final in a 5-part lecture series entitled Citizens, Entrepreneurs, and NGOs, Private Actors and the Public Good in Brazil. In the series so far, we've heard from the grassroots, we've heard from NGOs, we've heard from business leaders, and from the university sphere. Today, it is our honor and great privilege to hear from someone who so deeply personifies the concept of multi-sectoral in her life and her work. Anthropologist, feminist, scholar, activist, first lady, and much more. But nobody at Harvard knows Dr. Cardoso's history better than her colleague and ours, Dr. David Mayberry Lewis, Edward C. Henderson Professor of Anthropology and Chair of the Brazilian Studies Committee at Harvard. So without much further ado, I will invite Dr. Mayberry Lewis to properly introduce our distinguished speaker. Thank you.
It really is a very special pleasure to be asked today to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Ruth Cardoso, because this gives me an opportunity to tell you all what you probably know already, but it is worth stressing that before Dr. Cardoso became Brazil's First Lady, she was an anthropologist and a professor of anthropology in her own right. Better yet, in those days and still today, she is much admired and well liked in her profession. Now, since I'm speaking to an academic audience, I know that most of you will understand me when I say that to be admired and at the same time well liked in your profession is quite remarkable. Well, this is what Dr. Cardoso has managed to achieve. Her own early work was on the Japanese in the state and city of São Paulo, and later on she worked on issues of gender, of popular culture, of political ideology. In fact, she's worked on so many topics, always topics having great social relevance, that it's very difficult to enumerate them, and I'm not going to try today in this brief introduction. At the same time, I also want to stress that she has been, and still is, respected for her teaching, especially for her advising of graduate students. Dr. Cardozo has advised theses and sat on thesis committees in the major universities of Brazil, particularly at the University of São Paulo, and I'm happy to say, at the University of Rio de Janeiro. And I'm happy to say that because there she has turned out PhDs in the program which is known as the Postgraduate Program in Social Anthropology, a program which I had the honor and privilege of being the co-founder many, many years ago, together with Professor Roberto Cardoso de Oliveira, whom you know very well, who is also related by marriage to the First Lady's family. But I think there's no doubt about it that in recent years, Dr. Cardozo is best known for her work on social movements. And it's easy to see why that work has been so passionate an enterprise for her, because it has given her the opportunity to connect theory with practice. When her husband first took over the presidency of Brazil, he startled some people and impressed many others when he said unequivocally, "Brazil is an unjust society." And he let it be known that this would be a major problem for any administration, and certainly one which his own administration intended to address. Now, Dr. Ruth Cardozo has not only investigated and organized research around the themes of injustice and inequality, she has been, from the very start, determined to do something about them. Comunidade Solidaria is the instrument she created to do it. I find it very difficult to translate Comunidade Solidaria. It is a ringing phrase in Portuguese, but to translate it into solidary community in English doesn't sound so well. It clearly has a lot to do with civil society, but it's more than just that. It's not just civil society. It is perhaps a vibrant civil society, but that's not as eloquent as Comunidade Solidaria. So I'll leave it to Professor Cardozo to explain it to you later on. But at the very least, the importance of a vibrant civil society is something which we all recognize today. It's now generally recognized as a major theme in modern social theory, especially after the dreadful example that we all witnessed of what happened to the Soviet Union at the time of its breakup. Here was a nation which had allowed, indeed obliged, its civil society to atrophy. And we were all witnesses to the horrendous consequences of that at the breakup of the state. Now, fortunately, civil society in Brazil, for all the problems that that country faces, is far from atrophied. The proliferation and liveliness of the NGOs in Brazil who developed their engagement, their social engagement, in the days of the military dictatorship. As I say, the proliferation and liveliness of these NGOs is a demonstration of the vitality of civil society in Brazil. And Dr. Ruth Cardozo's work has investigated how and why Brazilian civil society has remained vigorous in spite of all the problems of the nation, and how it can be assisted to function of its own accord to further social development and help to attenuate injustice. So today, we have an exceedingly rare opportunity, an opportunity to hear a scholar who is also an activist, and to hear her speak about the connection between theory and practice. So please join me in welcoming Professor Ruth Cardozo, the First Lady of Brazil.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I would like to thank Cynthia Sandborg and David Mabry-Lewis for the kind words of welcome. I'm pleased and honored for this opportunity to speak at the ARCO Forum of Public Affairs about the experience of Comunidade Solidaria, building partnerships for social development in Brazil. This is as we conceived Comunidade Solidaria. For all the complexities of the Brazilian society, I feel that we are lucky to live in a very interesting time. Summing up in one sentence my presentation of tonight, I would say that events in Brazil sharply contradicted Margaret Thatcher's notorious statement that there is no such a thing as a society. Quite to the contrary, in this pessimistic assumption, our recent history is marked by the rise of a vibrant civil society, like David said. In a dynamic and unequal society such as Brazil, process of change may take a while to mature, but once set in motion, they tend to move forward at an accelerated pace. We are presently living through one of these periods of rapid change. The patterns of relationship between state and civil society are being reshaped. For too long, the state tended to impose itself upon society. For too long, political debate turned around a narrow ideological polarization of state versus market. Now, the public-private divide is being challenged. Private resources are increasingly being invested for the public good. Civil society is calling for a more efficient and accountable government. These changes are being driven by the converging trends toward stronger citizen participation and corporate social responsibility. Bridges of collaboration among different sectors are opening up vast opportunities for resource mobilization. Citizen organizations, governments, and the private business sector are reaching out to each other and learning how to work together for the common good. The history of Comunidade Solidaria in Brazil reflects this new environment. Indeed, our investment in building multiple partnerships is the main explanation for Comunidade Solidaria rapid growth. In seven years, we moved from a platform for experimentation and innovation to our current position as the hub of an expanding network of programs and partners committed to social development. Comunidade Solidaria was created at the beginning of Fernando Henrique Cardoso's administration in 1995 as a tool to promote citizen participation and new forms of partnership between state and civil society. Two basic assumptions informed our decision at that point in time. First, we recognized that Brazilian society was more open, diverse, and engaged than ever before in the history of our country. By the mid-90s, there was not one area of public concern in Brazil around which groups of citizens did not mobilize to pressure the state and to take action by themselves. By fighting the military dictatorship and responding to the needs of the poor, non-governmental organizations accumulated a wealth of experience that positioned them as vital partners of the state in the promotion of social development. Hence, the challenging for the newly elected government to open fresh channels of dialogue with civil society. What we know very well that's not easy to do, channels between government and civil society, but we tried. The second basic assumption was the realization that Brazil spends a considerable portion of public funds for social programs. But more often than not, this money does not reach the poor. Lacking adequate targeting, public expenditures tend to reproduce rather than overcome inequality. It's important to call the attention that it's not only or principal a problem of corruption, it's a problem of lack of adequate targeting, as I said here. The need we have in Brazil is to renew and reorganize the social programs. There was, therefore, no excuse to create yet another governmental fund aimed to finance scattered social projects. That was our idea. Such centralized mechanisms tend to result in a waste of resources. They treat people and communities as passive recipients of programs delivered from top down. We felt that a radical shift of perspective was called for. In a country where a long history of injustice accounts for large segments of the population is still living in a situation of poverty, fighting inequality and social exclusion requires strengthening the capacities of people and communities to act as agents of their self-development, targeting social programs to the poorest geographical areas and the most vulnerable sectors of the population. Mobilization of public and private resources through multiple partnerships, and decentralized execution and community involvement as conditions for enhancing the efficiency of social problems. These key concepts become the cornerstones of Comunidade Solidaria's strategy. They have oriented our initiatives to promote social development and strengthen civil society. From the institutional point of view, we also felt that only new mechanisms, light and flexible, created and supported by government but not owned by it, would be capable of playing a much-needed double role. Dialogue with government to improve the targeting and synergy among social programs, dialogue with civil society to mobilize skills and resources for innovative initiatives of social development. Comunidade Solidaria's governing board is a council composed of 4 government representatives, the Minister of Education, Health and Labor, plus the head of the President's office, and 28 civil society leaders, social entrepreneurs, businessmen, opinion makers, and scholars. The funding of Comunidade Solidaria also combines support from the federal government in terms of infrastructure and service, with donations from the public and grant made on a project basis by private companies and development agencies. But most of all, Comunidade Solidaria is what it does. We pursue our mission through 3 basic strategies of action: engaging government and society in public dialogue around a common social agenda, promoting the experimentation and replication of innovative social programs, strengthening citizen participation and civil society. Let's have a brief look at each of these lines of action, starting with the effort to open up a new platform for public dialogue and consensus building. Comunidade Solidaria took the initiative to convene rounds of political discussion aimed at building the broadest possible consensus on how to deal with critical issues such as land reform, food security, microcredit, basic education, alternatives of occupation and income generation, children's rights, and youth empowerment. Each of these negotiating rounds involved a wide variety of actors in the drafting of a common agenda of proposals with a clear timetable of implementation by the executive and legislative branches of government, as well as by civil society. Parallel to this policy-making role, our main effort in terms of energy and resource was the development of a set of youth empowerment programs, where the key notion of targeting, partnership building, and decentralization could be fully tested. The reason for focus on youth were compelling. From the viewpoint of public policies, youth people stand in a sort of no man's land with very few programs targeted to their needs and reality. Demographically, youngsters represent an important segment of the population, even though their number will decrease in the future. Today, they are especially at risk. Low in income, because we have a decreasing rate of fertility, then of course in some years more we will have a less imported segment of youth people pressuring the labor market. But now the situation is very acute. Low-income youngsters are directly affected by unemployment and exposed to violence, drugs, crime, sexually transmittable disease, and early pregnancy. But youngsters are also ready to use their energy and creativity to learn what is needed for a life with dignity. Given the opportunity and the tools, they may play a leadership role in the improvement of their communities. With this goal in mind, Comunidade Solidaria invested in the design of programs in the areas of literacy education and professional training. Each involves a large set of public and private partners that provide the necessary capacities and resources. Methods, costs, and results are carefully monitored to offer reliable guidelines for the program's replication. One of these initiatives is Capacitação Solidária, a professional training program directed to poor urban youth ages 14 to 21. This program has already empowered about 100,000 youngsters with the skills required by today's evolving job market. NGOs were selected in a competitive process, trained and financed as the direct executors of the program. Most of them were small community-based organizations close to the youngsters' environment. We always work with these very small NGOs in the periphery of the cities. Strengthening these local organizations, many of which with no previous access to sources of support, has been a key reason for the project's rapid expansion. From a pilot experience carried out with 40 NGOs from Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, the program jumped to 9 major Brazilian cities with the participation of 2,500 NGOs. 2,500. I repeat because I'm proud to have so many people working with us. Another initiative is the Youth Literacy Program. Alfabetização Solidária aims to teach adolescents and young adults living in the municipalities with the highest illiteracy rates in Brazil. This means very rural and very far municipalities in this large country that is Brazil. By bringing together universities, private corporations, local administration authorities, and mobilizing the community itself, the program was successful at the very low per capita cost of $14 monthly. This is another point of pride for me. $14 per month per capita. This investment is shared on a 50-50 basis by the Ministry of Education, and the pool of private companies and universities. The literacy program started in 1997 with a pilot project covering 10,000 students from 38 municipalities of the North and Northeast region, the ones that had a highest rate of illiteracy. By early 2002, now, it had reached 2.6 million students in more than 1,200 municipalities. A support network linking 300 private and public universities was created to train 95,000 literacy teachers. We have 95,000 literacy teachers, and these locally recruited educators are empowered to play the role of development agents within their communities. It means they are not only new teachers for this community, but they are also people that are committed with the community and agents for the local development. The model of the literacy program has been exported to East Timor and Mozambique, adapted to local conditions by Brazilian teachers. This was the beginning of a South-South cooperation that is being extended to other Portuguese-speaking countries. The partnership and networking of 250 Brazilian universities is what explains the outreach achieved by another of our programs, Comunidade Solidaria. This initiative has already enabled 8,000 students and 700 teachers to provide technical assistance and education, on education, health, and community development to youngsters, women, and local leaders from 900 poor municipalities. Predictably enough, the students and teachers have been deeply transformed by the experience of sharing for some weeks the daily life of those they were supposed to educate. The enthusiasm generated by the project led many of the participating universities to establish permanent working links with their surrounding communities. On the other hand, the information and knowledge brought by the university teams helped to energize the poor municipalities, strengthening local capacities and structures. All partners, therefore, gave and took something of value out of their involvement in the program. Another innovative initiative, Artesanato Solidário, came to be in response to a crisis situation. 4 years ago, drought struck again the impoverished areas of northeast of Brazil. Instead of responding to the threat of hunger just by the delivery of emergency food packages, Comunidade Solidaria decided to invest in the empowerment of poor women as handcrafts producers. Technical and financial support was provided to selected groups of artisans, enabling them to form cooperatives to improve the quality of their crafts. Today, their products are increasingly being commercialized in the national and global markets. With these actions, Comunidade Solidaria tried to demonstrate that some of our most intractable social problems, such as illiteracy, rural poverty, or urban youngsters' joblessness, can be dealt with in a cost-effective way. Comunidade Solidaria is a promoter of initiatives that, for their sustainable continuation, are stimulated to evolve into full, independent, self-standing organizations. Each autonomous program, thus, becomes a focal point in a common collaborative network. The programs that I have outlined seek to deal with inequalities inherited from the past. As we attempt to overcome them, we are also being confronted by new trends such as the digital divide. With today's pace of technological change, these knowledge gaps, if left unattended, will create extensive new patterns of inequality. That is why the latest initiative that we have launched, the YouthNet, aims precisely to bridge the widening gap that separates the haves and the have-nots in terms of access to the new information technology. My conviction is that these emerging divides, by their very nature, cannot be surmounted by action at national level alone. They call for broader global alliance. How to forge the new alliance is a new challenge for our imagination. The third priority strategy for Comunidade Solidaria was the strengthening of civil society. This line of action combined the promotion of volunteerism, the dissemination of knowledge and information about the third sector, and the creation of a more favorable legal environment for citizen participation, private giving, and social investment. Volunteering is a habit of the heart and a civic virtue. Far from being a nostalgic relic from the past, solidarity combined with citizenship is what enhances the moral texture of our communities, the social fabric of our societies. In Brazil, as elsewhere, these social ties constitute the most basic safety net protecting the powerless from poverty, abuse, and fear. This social capital should therefore be a key component of any strategy of sustainable development. Within this conceptual framework, Comunidade Solidaria promoted the creation of more than 40 volunteer centers in major cities. Their function is to mobilize people and communities to turn social problems into opportunities for voluntary action. The focus of the program has now shifted to the volunteers themselves. A portal in the internet was created to promote volunteer action by all segments of society. It's called Portal do Voluntário. The young, the disabled, and the elderly are being stimulated to share their knowledge and solidarity with others, thus enhancing their self-esteem and usefulness. Children, it means that we are not promoting the voluntarism to assist the disabled and the elderly, but calling these people, this segment, to be volunteers also. Children are being encouraged to express their compassion and creativity through voluntary actions appropriate to their age. We also support the creation of a third sector information network. This initiative is a tool for the dissemination of information, the promotion of interaction among public, private, and non-for-profit organizations. Finally, Comunidade Solidaria has played advocacy and policy-making role in favor of the third sector. New laws were enacted on the value of volunteers, the legal status of civil society organizations, the access of NGOs to public funds, and the lifting of restriction to microcredit initiatives. These are one of results of this, our action as advocacy in favor of the third sector. Before concluding, I would like to share with you some of the lessons that are being learned from this rich process of dialogue, partnership building, experimentation, and innovation. First of all, it's important to underline that the dynamics of citizen participation that are taking place all over Brazil have been greatly facilitated by the decentralization of power and resources from the federal sphere to the regional and local levels. Conditions are ripe for synergy between government policies and community initiatives. The mindset of the different actors involved is changing. Second, my major realization. We are discovering that alliances involving multiple partners follow a pattern of variable geometry. They tend to be flexible, action-oriented, and problem-solving in order to build on their own success. Different people and agents do not need to agree on everything in order to collaborate. Networking does not erase difference nor eliminate areas of disagreement and even conflict intrinsic to a democratic society. The third point, in a country like Brazil, money may be scarce, but social capital, mutual trust, webs of solidarity, expertise, and will to act is abundant. The latest figure that we have on volunteering, private giving, and corporate social investment confirms this notion of a vibrant and participatory society. The research conducted by Leila Landim within the Johns Hopkins Comparative Nonprofit Sector study indicates that 1 out of every 4 Brazilians dedicate their time and talent to volunteer activities. This is impressive. 50% of the population make donations in money or in kind to social institutions. This figure grows to 8% with the inclusion of the donations made on a person-to-person basis without going through an institution. The data on corporate social investment reveals an amazing increase over the last 10 years. The research by Ana Maria Peliano on social action by private companies indicates that 2/3 of the companies based on the southeast of Brazil undertake some kind of social activity. There is a growing recognition in Brazil that far from condoning the downsizing of the state, cross-sectoral partnerships actually increase the resources invested by government and society in social development. It's quite difficult to accept that kind of data, but it's true. I always feel that in Brazil we have a great solidarity, but we always describe our society, we are always pessimist, and we describe our society as an unorganized one. But now we have the figures to show that we are quite different from this image. We are learning that there is no contradiction between the duties of the state and the responsibilities of the citizens, as there is no contradiction between top-down public policy and bottom-up community initiatives, or between the provisions of services by governmental agencies and the development of local social capital. They are complemented always. No? It's time to conclude with a brief note concerning our vision of the future. The results achieved by Comunidade Solidaria led us to believe that now is the time to build the conditions of the sustainable continuation of our strategies of action beyond the term of office of the present government. In response to this challenge, a fully independent non-for-profit organization, Comunitas, has been created. We are also making a determined effort to link all our programs in an open and interactive network, which we have named Rede Sol. This means that we need to construct a nucleus and to build the possibility of a network with all these programs. Hopefully, Comunitas and Rede Sol, driven by a common set of values and purpose, will enable us, in alliance with our partners, to continue advancing along this road. These were the ideas, dear friends, that I wanted to share with you tonight. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cardoso. We will now take questions to the extent that the time permits. We'll ask people to come up to one of the 4 microphones posted around the room to please briefly identify yourself before posing your question. Please pose a question, not a declaration or a statement, and a single question per person, please. I believe we'll start here.
Bem-vindo. My name is Karen Bhatia. I'm a second-year Master's in Public Policy student here at the Kennedy School. My question is, in what ways are the private sector involved in Comunidade Solidaria, and what are their incentives to invest in these social partnerships?
As I said, the private sector is highly involved in Comunidade Solidaria, not only with funds in programs like Alfabetização Solidária. All the funds invested are from the private sector, and the Minister of Education give us all the, the materials and the support we need, but not money. Money comes from the private enterprise, and we have something like 100 of enterprises supporting this program, no? And the other programs also. But it is very important, your question, because if we don't have any incentive, tax incentive in Brazil for this kind of donation, we are trying, and Comunidade Solidaria is advocating this, that we could have some tax exemption, no? Incentive. But at this moment, we don't have. Then, these figures I gave to you are figures that is a participation without incentives.
Okay, we'll take this question up here.
Leonardo Letelier, Harvard Business School, second year, graduating, coming back to Brazil in a few months. You showed us very impressive data that 1 in 4 people in Brazil volunteer, 1 in 2 give money, but what is missing, what is lacking for this, all the population volunteer to transform in a change of mind from the elite? So the elite changes from wanting to make their cards bulletproof to wanting to make the rest of the country improve.
I think it's not so simple like that. What I said, yes, exactly, that we have an image of the country that is on the press, you read on press, you heard in the conversations that Brazil is a society, an amorphous society, and it's not true. We are demonstrating with this figure. This figure is the result of a research, and a very good research. Then the problem is that maybe the elite that is so distant from the attitudes of the popular sector are not seeing what's happened. But at this side, they are also participating through the enterprise, the corporations, and this kind of donations that helps to maintain all these programs. What I began my speech saying that we are in a moment of rapid change in Brazil, and I believe truly in that. I think we are changing in attitudes, and then we will change also in, not in values, but the image that we construct of ourselves.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Duggan. I work with the Youth Employment Summit. I'd like to congratulate you on your work with the Secretary General's High-Level Policy Network on Youth Employment. And my question is that if you had your wish list, your dream to end poverty and create youth employment and social inclusion, and if resources and money were not an issue, what would that program or project be?
No, the money is always a problem. It's always, we always need money. But the plan of each one of these programs, they are planned like in, a way that we have modules, we have, modules, that we can make one municipality or 10 if we have the resource. you know, all is planned this way in all the programs. We have the possibility of organize 1 or 10. Then we depend on the access to resources. I have to say that till now, it's not easy, but it's not impossible to arrive to have all the resources we need. I think so.
Muito prazer. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Adriana Hochberg, and I'm a student here at the Kennedy School. My question concerns the indigenous tribes of the Amazon. What role do you think that partnerships can play to assist the indigenous groups of the Amazon to protect their land and their cultural identity?
I think it's fundamental, because I think in this world we need partnership to build everything that we have in front. And in the case of the indigenous in Amazon, there are a lot of partnerships helping them to demarcate the land. You know, in Amazon, most of the reserves are now demarcated. There are 2 or 3 that have problems, the law problems that are more complicated. But in order also to have programs of social development, community development inside these groups, there are a lot of partnerships and NGOs working with them. And I think we have also arrived to a very good progress. In this program, our program of handcrafts, we work together with people that work in the Indian tribes. And we are now imagined to sell together the things from the Northeast and things for the Indian tribes. I believe that we only can arrive to very clear objectives if we have partnership. Government with society, society between, and various countries also, like in the case of the indigenous people that have a lot of NGOs from other countries that are partners in this development.
Thank you.
We'll go back here and go around again. This question, and you could speak into the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Amy Nunn, and I'm a student at the Harvard School of Public Health. And I'm wondering if you could, I'd like to hear your opinion on Sarney's decision to drop out of the presidential race and the implication for women's leadership in Brazil.
I haven't understood very well. Could you translate it? Das mulheres. I don't think that is a direct connection between these 2 facts, because I must say that she was not elected or selected by the women's movement. No? That is a very political selection that make her candidate. Of course, it's very important to see that when she presents the has candidated, the acceptance was incredible, and incredible because she is a woman. Then I think this is the very important data that we have this election in Brazil. The parties that are not so aware of the importance of women's candidate, now they saw that to be women is something very positive in the elections.
Thank you.
My name is Phyllis Maloney. I'm a sophomore at Harvard College. My question is, could you please elaborate on the effect of the recent economic crises in Brazil and throughout South America on your organization's work and on civic engagement around Brazil?
Elaborate about the price?
The effect of the economic crisis on your work and on civic engagement.
You know, the economic crisis is now something that we have to be waiting for, because this crisis, this financial crisis, are more or less, we have to expect that it can occur. But this last crisis, after the Russian crisis that of course had effects, great effects in Brazil, the other ones, Brazil supported more or less with some facility, no? Not too, it was not too hard. This. The problem is, in my work, the effects of the crisis, I have to say that is not so sensible, of course, when we work with the enterprises. Then we have a retraction of some enterprise, but not others. No? Then we have not feel very important effects, because our programs are very, as I demonstrate, they are cheap programs. It's small money that we ask for. We don't ask for much money for each enterprise. We ask for too much in many enterprises, but not too much money. The costs are, and I'm very aware of that point. The cost benefit of a social program must be very low, because we have so large problems in Brazil that it's not the case to organize a beautiful program, but in a cost that is ineffective for the conditions.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susana Cordeiro Guerra. I'm a student at the college. And Dr. Ruti, I had a question concerning this transition period from Comunidade and Rede Sol. How do you think, you mentioned in your lecture that one of the problems was the centralization of some of these organizations, and that's Comunidade Solidaria search to decentralize. And my question is, at this point, when you're creating this nucleus for the transition of Rede Sol, how do you think that you will overcome the vice of centralization, which is, which ends up being what most of these organizations tend to do?
You know, we are creating a network, not a centralized mechanism and a hierarchical relation between the different programs. All the programs are, points in this network. And the organization, the last organization we created, that is Comunitas, is, if we can say, the animator of this. This organization will substitute the now Council of Comunidade Solidaria, but has an animator of this network. The idea is, of course, construct the mechanism that will not be a hierarchical mechanism, organization, but really, if I can say, a mechanism of improved participation in an egalitarian basis. Then I don't think we are centralizing now. We always decentralized during the 7 years, and of course it's not our idea to now to centralize all these programs. I think it's most important that each one has his autonomy and be free for following the same principles to improve, to have his own way.
Thank you.
My name is Teresa Carvalho. I'm professor of University of São Paulo. I'm a student at Sloan School of MIT. Congratulations for your work. I have a question about security. Everyone that I speak with in Brazil say that now Brazil has a very big problem with security. How you think that your work and the work that you have been developed improves the problem of security or solves at some extend the security problem?
You know, we are not working with the security problem. No? I agree that it's a very important problem in Brazil. It's a great one. Everyone is preoccupied with the problem in Brazil, but it's not our mission is to fight poverty, to fight inequality. No? Of course, all things are related with insecurity. everything is related. Our program, for instance, of job training for the youngsters, I think this program has an enormous contribution to fight the violence, the criminality, because these youngsters are in the periphery of the urban centers, and they have no access to the job market. Of course, they are very easily attracted by the criminality, by the violence gangs and so on. Of course, this is a contribution, I think, and I think it's very effective, because these adolescents, they are included in the community through the work of these NGOs, and they are also social works in the community after they participate in this program. Then I think we are contributing, but I must say that is indirectly, because the politics we need for the building of a more secure environment, I think, need other kind of action that are not in our hands.
Okay, thank you a lot.
We will take these two last questions and then we'll have to end.
Thank you. My name is Paulo Gonçalves, a PhD candidate at the Sloan School of Management, MIT. And I just wanted to get a feel for what was the greatest barrier that you faced when implementing the Comunidade Solidaria, and also the greatest success story that you had.
The success story I told, I told today.
Well, but what is the one that really touches your heart?
It's difficult because I have a lot of programs. But for me, it's always difficult to choose one thing that is most important than the others. But I have a lot of stories that are quite amazing and quite, very agreeable to see. I used to visit in this, for instance, in the program, the literacy program, that are in very far regions of Brazil. I used to visit with the entrepreneurs that are supporting the program. And it's really very emotional, this visit. Everyone is crying, even the entrepreneurs that are with us, when people tell us what it means for them to be literated now. People that has 30 years, 25, and that now can read and write. It's very impressive, all this. No? And all these situations, I have a lot of situations like that are very, I don't know how to say in English, mas muito reconfortantes, muito rewarding. Yes. And, we always make mistakes. We are talking about that today in MIT, that every initiative has a road that are, correcting the direction. And of course, we did a lot of options that are not the best ones. But we are all the time trying to monitoring and correcting this. All our programs begin pilot programs. I told you that we begin the literacy program in 38 municipalities, the job training program in 2 centers, and now after we expand. Why this? Because we are always monitoring the beginning of the program and follow day by day how things are going on and correcting them. Then it's not the case that we wait for a great mistake and a wrong decision to then correct it. But at the same time, we are always evaluated, monitoring, and correcting things. Right. But things, sometimes they don't arrive where we want.
This will be our last question.
Okay, my name is Fausto da Rocha. I'm direct from Brazilian Immigrant Center. I came to the United States 14 years ago. My question is, you represent a great program you guys doing, this Comunidade Solidaria, but I don't see how this stop to us to move out from Brazil. We have in the last 10 years, over maybe 500% increased immigration, especially to the United States. I don't see nothing related to stop that, and I want to see how we can work together to support, to try to stop the people to move out for our country.
I don't know if you have to stop people to do what they want. I think, of course, in Brazil, everyone and the government and the society especially are very interested in the development of the country and to open opportunities for everyone. But I don't think this must be to prohibit people to migrate. You know, we are a country that lived from the migration. We have a lot of migrants. We are the expression of this change of countries and people and cultures. Then it's hard for us, I think, to think in something that will be to prohibit the migration.
Not to prohibit, but to create a better situation for don't push ourselves to move out, because we love to go back.
Yes, I can imagine. We are waiting to come back to Brazil. I think we are trying to develop a better situation to Brazil. I think today we are better than we were in 10 years late, no? And our programs and the way Comunidade Solidaria works, I think it had the quality to improve the quality of the poorest in Brazil. And this is fundamental to change the situation even for those that are not the poorest. Our problem in Brazil that we are a society divided and in poors and not poors, in people that has access to education and to any kind of research that the state can help, for instance, and people that had not. Then I think the first step in our society to have a less unjust society is to improve the poorest. And that we are trying to do.
Thank you.
Thank once again Dr. Ruth Cardoso for her wonderful presentation, and thank all of you for coming today. It was a pleasure.